All right, it looks like we are live. Thank you for everybody who can join us online tonight on YouTube and Facebook. I'm Jennifer. I'm the office manager here at English Lutheran Church. And we're going to talk with Brenda Rooney tonight about English Lutheran reopening for worship services, which is very exciting. So Brenda is an epidemiologist and medical director for the Department of Community and Preventive Care Services. That's a mouthful a little bit, but at Gunderson Health. So we invite you as you're coming on. You can put any comments or questions in the feed, and we will try to get those worked into the conversation here. And also want to give a thank you to Caden Pannell, who's kind of monitoring behind the scenes to make sure we don't miss anything on the chat that needs to be addressed. So Brenda, thanks for being here with us tonight. Yeah. I appreciate your time here. So can you just tell us a little bit more about, how long you and Dan have been members here, your church background and your work background?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me tonight. I joined English Lutheran, Dan and I did in 1994. I was pregnant with Claire then, and we raised our family here at English Lutheran. I really feel like we did. We grew up here, and the kids were really involved in things. Dan's been on the vision board and evangelism committee and softball. I have to say softball because he misses being on the softball teams. And I've been on several committees here, social committee and call committee for Pastor Mark and all sorts of stuff. So we've been pretty involved over the years. And I'm also pretty involved in the development and planning of community conversations that Pastor Mark was pretty involved in. At Gunderson, I'm an epidemiologist, as you said in the intro, and before COVID hit, nobody knew what that was, but I think a lot of people now know the term, at least. I've been at Gunderson for almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years in December.
Wow, and, that's amazing.
I started when I was 10. My work has involved research around a lot of health promotion, health risk, health promotion, various topics over the years. And with COVID, I've been kind of involved in putting together metrics for our organization to keep track of cases and hospitalizations and deaths and things like that, as well as a lot of work on the development of how to roll out the vaccine and then other policies around COVID and, that kind of thing. So
you've been really busy this last year is what I'm hearing. Have you slept much at all?
It has. My hair is a little grayer. It's been a little bit more stressful. I don't feel like I was necessarily prepared for a pandemic, but it's pretty hard to prepare for a pandemic.
I was going to say, is anybody prepared for this?
Nobody's prepared for this, and yeah. And then just a side note is that my mother died from COVID in December. So COVID is just a really important thing for me and a topic for me that I have a lot of passion about. So I'm really kind of happy to be on this reopening team with English.
Yes, we are happy to have you on here too. And, we were so sorry to hear about your mom back in December. So, going, maybe we should start way back at the beginning. We were just talking about last March when everything shut down and I was home in my pajamas working at my dining room table. We were chatting before we came on here. Looking back to March 2020, when this all hit, we thought we'd be shut down for a few weeks. And then it turned into a few months, and then summer and fall came and the cases just went crazy. So once summer and fall came around, we knew as a staff that we would have to look at this more on a long-term basis. You mentioned your gratefulness of being on the reopening team. Can you tell us how that team kind of came to be formed? Who else is on it and things like that?
Yeah. I think we had our first meeting in October. I'm not quite sure who nominated me to be on it, but I was asked.
I think it might have been me.
Yeah, thank you. Our first meeting was in October, and I think the intent is to really assist the staff and the pastors in making these decisions so that everyone doesn't start egging Jennifer's house or Nikki's house. It's good to have a committee of people making these decisions. The committee involves both pastors, Becky and Pastor Glenn. Dr. David Bladorn, he's an internal medicine physician and member at English Lutheran, so he's on the committee. Mary Mueller, and she's a long-term member as well and has a nursing background, and then also various connections to groups in the community, especially working with some homeless and other groups. So Carl Green is the vision board connection to the vision board on our committee. Mark Flatten and you, and Nikki informally. She's not formally a member, but she's on as many meetings as you are. So
I think she's going to be a new honorary member. So she came on once we started reopening, for the small groups and things, because she's the logistics person. We leave that to her. That's her expertise. So, since October, what are some of the things that the team has talked about and worked through as problems, solutions for what we've had going on here at church?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the experiences that I and Dr. Bladorn have had at Gunderson, we could kind of say, well, maybe English should think about some of those things. So I think one of the first things we did was to really look at how people were coming in and out of the church, and, how controlled was that, and what kind of policies did we have around who's coming in, how are they coming in, how are we keeping track of that? And so we really encouraged, making sure that everyone wears a mask, that they sign in when they come in, so that we could keep track if there's any kind of outbreak, so that we know who's in the building. And then hand sanitation and signing a attestation that you have no symptoms, that kind of thing. So that was something that we have at Gunderson, and that was a really good thing, I think, to implement with English. And then some guiding principles about how are we going to make decisions about reopening, so that it isn't based on just gut reactions or what we think or what the church down the street is doing. It's really more based on our expertise with what the science is saying. So we are using guidance from the Center for Disease Control, from the La Crosse County Cooley Collaborative, and then from the ELCA La Crosse Synod and the Wisconsin Council of Churches. So they've all kind of have some policies about church reopening, and we kind of looked at that and looked for guidance for that. And then things like made recommendations for the annual meeting, and most recently how to reopen, when we could let small groups back into the church and things like that.
Yeah, and having those small groups back has been amazing. I can tell you, it has been hard as an employee here. I've been here 17 years, so it's like, it's not even coming to work. It's like my second home here, Mm-hmm. And to be alone in the building with just staff here was very, very strange for the last year. So I remember the first Tuesday morning that those quilter ladies came in, and it was like, I sit behind this little partition over here, so I can't really see who's coming and going. But just knowing there were other people in the building, I mean, you could literally feel the life inside the building, and just knowing that there are other people here. And it was very joyful for us as a staff to have everybody come back and not feel so alone here anymore. So
yeah, I saw the pictures of the quilters, and they certainly looked happy.
Oh, yes, they are just happy campers.
Sorry we had said no sharing of food for right now, but
hopefully we can get back to that in the fall. So
hopefully we get back to that.
So, we kind of talked about what, you went from ELCA, guidelines from the ELCA, the La Crosse County Collaborative, which is made up of Gunderson and Mayo and the health department and stuff. So when we talked about as a team to come back for in-person worship, that piece of it, what kind of characteristics were you looking for, and what the caseload is like around here in La Crosse County? Like, what kind of metrics were you looking at when we made that decision?
Yeah, so we're looking at a few things. We're looking at the number of cases in the community, obviously, and then also looking at the number of hospitalizations, because that would suggest severe cases. And then looking for any potential high-risk exposures, like, was there a party somewhere? Or, we certainly didn't want English Lutheran to host an event and then have a whole bunch of people get COVID from that. So that, looking to make sure none of that's happening in the community. And then looking at the vaccination rates. So those are kind of the number of cases and vaccination rates are the two most important metrics. And in the Wisconsin Council of Churches, they've kind of said they have kind of three levels. One is don't open, one is safer, and the other is safest. And they have 50 to 70% vaccinated to be considered safer, and cases in the 5 to 10 per 100,000. So across county is about 100,000. So 5 to 10 active cases over the last 7 days would be considered safer, where you could start to do some reopening. And then safest is where you could really consider getting back to kind of somewhat normal. And that was vaccinated at 70 to 85% and less than one active case going on. So where we are today is pretty good, actually. And that's, I think, why we as a committee agreed that it was okay for us to reopen. We're at 11 cases per 100,000. So on the across county website, that's an orange. It's not green, but it's an orange. We were at 9, just about 10 cases per 100,000 in March. And so we're up just a little bit. And I think we're always going to see these little kind of waves. Not always, hopefully we'll get over that. But, if you watch it every day, you're going to kind of go crazy because it's going to go up and down. It's like the stock market sometimes. But we're at 11 right now. And then with vaccinations, I think the good news is we're about 50% of the population has had at least one vaccine.
That's great.
It is great, considering I think most of us, I never imagined we'd have the vaccine out by now, let alone that many people vaccinated. And the really good news is that 86% of adults over 65 in La Crosse County are vaccinated.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
That is. And
absolutely fantastic.
That describes a lot of the people that come to church that we were really concerned about. You always, having a mother that was in a nursing home, you're really worried about the impact of COVID on older population. And, so that I think have been very hesitant with the not wanting, to expose older adults to COVID.
Yes.
And so that's always been our concern.
Yeah. Talking about the vaccines a little bit, I actually have a question, and you guys remember that you can throw questions and comments up in the chat there too. With our, can you speak a little more to the vaccinations? If people are still looking to get them, where are they being offered here in town? Things like that. Yeah.
So both Gunderson and Mayo are offering vaccines and are offering walk-ins. So if you're over 16, you can schedule 16 or over, you can get an appointment. You can call and get an appointment at either facility, or you can do walk-ins. I know Gunderson does walk-ins all the time. And I think I saw just on the news just before we started this call that Mayo had walk-ins tomorrow. So don't hesitate. And that was going to be my final plea, was to please, please, please get vaccinated, because that's really the best and maybe only way that we're ever going to get a handle on this whole outbreak is if we can reach herd immunity. You've heard of herd immunity, and if we have to eventually snuff out the virus, and the only way to snuff out the virus is to get people immune to it. And there's no real proof right now, scientific proof, that once you have had COVID, you're immune. So they're encouraging everyone, even if you've had COVID, to get vaccinated. So
great. Well, we'll let you have another plea at the end, because I think that's really important. So.
Yeah, I can say the bad news, though, or if you want to call it bad, is that the vaccine rates we're hitting that group of hesitant people who are a little either afraid to get vaccinated or don't feel like they need to. And we've also seen some people who only got one shot and not both. And so, yeah, we really need people to roll up their sleeves for everybody, not just for themselves, but it protects their their family and their neighbors and their friends too, and their coworkers.
And their fellow church members.
And their fellow members.
Great. So some churches have actually been open for a while. So we've had this question come up a lot, that this church is open and this church is open. Why did we decide to stay closed just a little bit longer?
Well, I think you wanted to rely on a committee of people that were health oriented and health knowledgeable, number one. And so you did that, and we were following the recommendations of the ELCA, our church synod, and we really wanted time to prepare effectively for our worship leaders, our pastors, and our staff, and our musicians to all get vaccinated. And then we also wanted to make sure that we didn't, who are the people that probably want to come back the worst right now? The people that maybe are a little bit more isolated are those, probably a lot of the 65 and over congregation. And hey, they're the highest risk, and we certainly did not want to risk anyone getting ill. So we have been a little bit more on the conservative side of some churches. At the same time, I think we're doing really, really well with the live streaming. And if people didn't have access to live stream, we've gotten them the tools. Hopefully, a lot of people. Hopefully, we haven't missed too many people.
Yes, and Irene was talking about her iPad ministry last week during the updates. So
yeah, so live streaming seems to go well. We're getting a lot of people to participate, and so I think it's just been the idea that we should be as conservative and follow the ELCA policy as possible.
Great. So now that we're going to be open May 8th and 9th, I'm going to come to church for the first time. Like, what's it going to look like? How are we going to do this? What's the process going to be like once I show up in the parking lot?
Well, it's going to look a little different. And you'll see that when you go out to the websites. You can go out to the website and register, or you can call the office. Jennifer has that phone number that she'll give it probably at the end again. But when you register, so we're limiting the number of spots, first of all, because the narthex itself does not have the ventilation system that we could just say, let's just open it to anyone. So right now we're offering a total of 75 people. That includes the volunteers and the pastors and the musicians to be in the narthex. And so that is about 60-ish people that we can allow on Saturday night and Sunday. When you get to the parking lot, we'll want you to come in the parking lot door. There'll be a sign up, some people greeting you. They'll probably ask you some questions, making sure that you don't have any COVID symptoms. You will be required to wear a mask. There'll be hand sanitizers there, and then you'll be guided into the chapel and seated by an usher, because we don't want people to be sitting too close to each other, and we feel like that's probably the best way to control where people sit. So you probably won't get your spot. The first couple.
You cannot tell a Lutheran that, Brenda. We have our spots.
I know. And so if you're comfortable sitting in the back left, you might end up finding yourself in the front right. But we do want to just kind of make sure that the first couple of weeks we kind of know where people are, and people can kind of see how it goes. So I don't think we're planning on bulletins. We'll be using the screens as much as we can. There won't be the youth or the little kids' bags. And the first couple of weeks, we're not opening the nursery. You will be able to use the bathroom if you need it. And there probably will be no singing. So that might be kind of a challenge for people, because we love to sing.
Are you talking about Gary Wolf?
Yeah. And I think I know a few other people that really love to sing. So there will be some singing, but not by the congregation probably. And I think we're still looking for guidance on what to do about singing. And I know some of the churches in the area have talked about how they're managing it. So we're going to probably, if nothing else, we've learned this year is that we don't know what we don't know today. We'll know it tomorrow, maybe. So, and that things change. So we're learning from other people. We're learning from ourselves. We don't know everything that we need to know today, but we'll learn tomorrow, and we'll change policy based on what we learn. So that's the one thing. It's like, well, yes, we said last week that this was the way we were doing it, but today it's different, So buckle your seats and know that it's going to be change. So singing maybe not the first time, but there'll be music. I'm sure there'll be plenty of great music. We're going to ask people not to give the sign of peace or, to go up and hug each other. Please no hugging. I know you're all going to want to hug each other because we miss each other, or shake hands, and we're probably going to discourage that. But I think it will be still a great service. It will be so good for people to get back together. And it's just the beginning, I think it's just the beginning of getting back to kind of a normal. So that will happen Saturday night and Sunday. And Sunday's service will also still be live streamed. So
yes, that was another question I was going to ask.
Yep. So I will be watching because I won't be in town that weekend, but I will, I think watching it will be really good because then I'll see my friends and I'll see them doing it and see how it looks. And, like for me, I don't know about you, but there's some anxiety about going back into groups of people. Like I haven't been to a restaurant. I can't go into a restaurant and eat. Just that anxiety of seeing it. And so I think seeing the first group, being comfortable doing that and knowing that it worked well and my friends are there, and I think that will make me want to try it the next week. So
yeah, I agree with you there. I'm still kind of being a little conservative here too in our households. So just so everybody knows too, non-members can still attend. Anybody is welcome, but we just need to make sure that pre-registration is up. And so that's out there on our website, englishlutheran.org/COVID worship. Or you can call our office at 784-9335. So
we're going to need a lot of volunteers too.
Yes, that was another thing I was going to bring up. We have, I think it was about a dozen people that were needed for greeters, ushers, just to make sure that this all goes smoothly and that we're doing things as safely as possible. So, if you're considering coming to worship, please ask that you sign up to do a job. And if you need to come the first week and see how it works and what job is right for you, that's great. But, if everybody pitches in, we can keep this going and not have to shut down eventually. So
I don't think
we need a lot of people to keep it going.
Yeah. And I don't think that the ushering puts a risk to anybody. It's going to be no contact ushering. It's just basically guiding people to their seats. It gives you an opportunity to talk to people, honestly. So it might be a really good thing if you want to see people.
Again, that's probably the best job out there because you get to say hi to everybody.
Everyone will be masked. At the end of the service, you'll be escorted out into the parking lot because we don't want people to obviously to gather. No coffee or cookies.
Oh, hopefully that'll be one of those things we can roll back. I know we have a lot of restrictions you were talking about, not singing and trying to refrain from hugging and shaking hands and stuff. But hopefully we can start bringing some of those things back so that maybe every couple of weeks when you come, there will be something new that we can add back in based on the safety of it all. So
yeah, that's sort of the plan at Gunderson too, is that every week they kind of try to roll something back. So if it goes well and there's a desire to have the nursery, that might be one of the first things that gets rolled back, or coffee outside, or something like that. So
Yep. And just speaking to the nursery, we always welcome children in worship. We love to hear kids there. It is not, it's not a distraction. We want kids to be in worship too. So, but you'll have an opportunity, if your little one does get a little more rowdier than usual, you can always step out and, even though the nursery's not open, we can have other options for you to be comfortable with your kids there too. So being back in the building and having all these people here, what about sanitizing? How are we going to handle that before and after worship?
Yeah. So one thing that we've really learned since last March is that very little COVID has occurred from surface to surface. So, we were really worried, I think, initially about Amazon packages, and people were sanitizing the Amazon package before they opened it, and there's really not.
I was one of them.
There really hasn't been a lot of cases identified through that. It's mostly a respiratory, and it's mostly sitting, with exposure to people for longer than 10, 15, 20 minutes. And so, when you're sitting in church, I wouldn't I wouldn't encourage you to look around and be freaked out about everything, but we are planning to sanitize all the door handles while church is going on. So the doors will be open, and you won't touch the doors probably, but people always will somehow touch the doors. So the door handles will get sanitized while you're in church, and then when you leave, everything will get sanitized again. Maintenance has a spray gun that they'll be using in the narthex to kind of clean after church is done, and they're also the HVAC system will have plenty of time to run and recirculate the air and refresh the air between Saturday night service and Sunday morning service. So we're really feeling like it'll be okay. We were, it's conversation around should we remove the Bibles and the hymnals, and I don't think that we need to do that, and I don't think you need to worry about if you pick up a Bible and look at it. I don't think it's really a concern that needs to be wiped off or anything, because again, it's going to be, a good 12 to 14 hours before, or 15, I don't know, from 5 o'clock at night until 9:30 in the morning. It's just not anything I'm concerned about. So.
Okay, great. So I think we covered most of the big questions. Why don't we talk just a minute about funerals and weddings and baptisms? How are those things happening?
They're basically going to be in the same rules as worship. We're, right, the first couple of weeks we're going to say let's cap it at about 75 total people, if possible, and try to do as much social distancing, keeping track of who's there so that we know if anything should occur, we know how to reach people, or at least we know who was there. So I know there was a funeral a couple of weeks ago, and it sounded like it went okay. Sometimes weddings and funerals, we have to be a little bit more compassionate about the size. A funeral, my mother's funeral was graveside, and we didn't do anything in the church, but it was December, and it was really in the middle of all of the COVID stuff. So obviously you want to have rules, you want to have them written down, and you want to not let anyone violate them. But if we're all rule breakers, which a lot of us Lutherans are not, we don't like to break rules. But a lot of it is we got to look at what's happening around us, and if there's not a lot going on right now, then it's probably okay to be compassionate about decisions. So we're as a committee, kind of having this discussion about occasionally if someone needs to do something, we're probably going to be discussing it and making sure that we're all comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I appreciate the most about the people that we have on the team. Because we're a church, we look at things with grace and compassion, and always that little voice in your head, what would Jesus do? But we also have the expertise, and, all of you have been blessed by God with remarkable skills in the healthcare field. And, so I think we really do have the perfect team here of, science meets religion and finding that perfect middle ground there. So we appreciate everything that you guys have done. So anyway, we can probably about wrap it up here. We've been on for about half an hour. So what do you think in the future holds in regards to worship and having groups back? You know, we're kind of going into the summer here where things die down and get quiet anyway. But with people being eager to be back, I'm assuming we'll probably have a few groups that will continue through the summer. I know, you know, people like Seekers, there's quite a few groups that elected to stay online but are eager to come back in the fall. You know, so do you have your magic 8-ball out to see what the future looks like, Brenda?
Oh, my magic 8-ball hasn't been working very well this year. But I'm hopeful. I'm just really hopeful. I think things have changed forever. There's just this new sense of normal for us all. So not that we're always going to have this fog of COVID over our heads, but I think what we learned from COVID is that lots of things that we didn't think was ever going to be possible is possible. So with technology, I mean, I can be in the Twin Cities with my daughter, and I can be at English Lutheran Church on Sunday morning and not miss church. And it's not the same as being there in person, but it's still a way for me to connect. And so I think we're going to see more and more opportunities like that to participate in ways that we can, and using the technologies that we've started to rely on. But it's also revealed a lot of disparities and vulnerabilities in our society as well. And I think that isn't good, but it's made us a lot more aware of the fragility of our society, and it also made us more aware of what's really important to us. You know, that people want so badly to come back to church is, you know, I don't know if people would have felt that way a year and a half ago, but you know, I think this sense of needing to be with each other is really important for our congregation. So I hope that we'll get back to some kind of sense of normal. I probably will wear a face mask a lot because I know I didn't get the flu this year. I didn't get sick. I haven't had a cold yet.
Yep, me neither.
And a face mask is like, it can match my outfit and it can be an accessory. I just don't see a problem with it, but that's me.
I know. I'm always jealous of Carol's face masks when she comes in the morning because she's very color coordinated, and I'm just not like that. I will wear pink with orange. I mean, I don't know. So
well, mine have to match my outfit.
So, and that's probably a good time too to give a little shout out to Arthur. You know, we ended up hiring him. Rob Ramsier came in for the first few months with his own equipment to kind of get us up and going. Once we figured out there was going to be more than that 2 weeks at the beginning of March last year. So thanks to Rob for stepping into doing that. And Arthur has been an absolute godsend. He has so much talent. And he's always so willing to say yes when we come up with these crazy ideas, like let's have a fire at Trevor's house and do the Easter Vigil service there. So he's been amazing to work with and a great addition to our team here too. So yeah, so I think that,
please get your vaccine, make sure that your loved ones get the vaccine. Make sure that your neighbors get the vaccine. Drag them to the place to get their vaccine. Continue to wear your mask. And if you don't feel well, be tested. Those are kind of, you know, like the big threes.
So not much has changed in that regard since last March, at least. So
no. Good strategies.
So, and then again, don't forget to register for worship too at EnglishLutheran.org. There's something right on the front page of our website there that'll take you to their COVID page to let you know all the protocols. There's a couple documents there for if you're going to worship at or volunteer at worship versus just attending, what to expect, that kind of thing. Or you can always call us at 784-9335. We're here 8:30 to 1 o'clock. We just extended our office hours a little bit more. So 8:30 to 1 Monday through Thursday, and then 8:30 to noon on Fridays. You can catch either me or Carol on the phone, and we are happy to register you for worship too. So, and then don't forget, of course, if you're still not quite comfortable, you know, like Brenda and I are kind of hanging back to wait and see what happens, that you are still more than welcome to join us online at 9:30 on Sundays. That will never change. The email will still go out. You could just click those links to get there and still watch it at home in your pajamas. I kind of like the pajama part, to be honest. So So thanks to Brenda for joining us today. I very much appreciate your wealth of knowledge and everybody on the reopening team as we've moved through this, and things just have been changing on a dime. And so you guys have really rolled with the punches here and had a lot of great advice and suggestions, recommendations for what we should do. Thanks again to Caden for monitoring the chat and looking at that stuff. And so we'll just close with a prayer tonight. God, we thank you for the skills and knowledge you give our scientists and medical professionals, and especially the strength you have given them to keep going for this past year. Heal us from our fears and pride concerning the coronavirus. Guide us all to be good neighbors, seeking to help each other in times of need. Emmanuel, God with us, whether we are home or away, surrounded by many people suffering from this illness or only a few, stay with us as we endure and mourn, persist and prepare. In our pain, our weariness, and our anxiety, and our joy with returning to worship, surround us with your care and protect us by your loving might. Permit us once more to enjoy health and strength and peace. Through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. So we'll wrap things up here for tonight. Thank you guys for joining us online. Very much appreciate you being here. Next week, same time, same place, and Nikki will be back, and she'll be talking to a representative or a couple from the transition team, and they're going to talk about the process and the update where we're at on calling our new senior pastors. So have a great night, and we will see you in church, finally. Thanks for being with us, everybody.
Bye.